of all the possible things we could talk about in this channel, I didn't think there would come a time where we talk about Among Us in any remotely serious context. So, a couple of days ago, the Among Us developer decided, I'm going to add a crypto miner to the website, then replaced it with a less efficient crypto miner, and then ultimately removed it within the course of a day. Now, I don't care if the miner was real or not. I didn't go and examine the code to work out if it was actually mining crypto. That's not really that important. What I do know that if it actually was mining crypto, it was sending it to a random wallet ID. So this was all done basically just for a meme. But it does raise a really interesting question. And no, not the question whether this is a serious project, unlike some of the Redditors complaining about this seem to think. I will leave that thread linked down below. It is honestly a hilarious read. But the question of whether crypto mining is a possible alternative to an ad-based model. And I'm not saying we should or we shouldn't do this. I just want to have a discussion about this. I am not settled on this one way or the other. Where I stand right now is I don't think there is any reason to discuss going back to the early days of the internet where no one was making any money unless they were selling a product online. We are long past those days. Most of the internet is free content. And that free content has to be funded in some way because people are visiting your servers and servers have server costs and domains cost money. And there are things that go into actually funding a site. So discussing going back is not even worth talking about. And when I say crypto miners, I think we can all agree that hiding a crypto miner in your site, not telling the users that that's actually running, is inherently a bad thing, and in many regions already is considered a crime. This crime is called cryptojacking. And it's in the same camp as things like hiding ads in a single pixel and other malicious practices like that. So when I say crypto miners on a site, I am exclusively talking about the user of the site is fully aware this is running, like you are fully aware that ads are running on a site like YouTube. With that out of the way, while annoying ads aren't great, you know, the ones that are really flashy, maybe they have video, worse, they have audio and the audio is turned on by default, that's not the biggest issue with advertising. Even with just image-based ads, there is still a major problem. And that is that the advertising model basically requires data collection to actually be effective. This is a massive privacy issue. And yes, there are more private ways to handle advertising. For example, the Brave model, where you just throw things to the wind and then hope they stick. But Brave has a fairly small user base, and most of those users are interested in fairly similar topics, things like crypto and tech and other things like that. And the other way you can do it is specifically targeting things where you know people are going to be interested in it. So for example, if you have a tech forum, you know that advertising tech on that forum is going to get clicks as opposed to advertising maybe makeup. But on the mining side, well, you certainly have to send more requests back and forth to make sure you're actually sending the mining data. There's no reason inherently to the model that you have to collect user data. You know, the operating system, the browser, anything that's used to identify that individual user. Because advertising, you want to build up a profile of that user. Mining, all that matters is you are going through the CPU cycles and, you know, sending us money. That's not to say that mass data collection would stop under a mining model, because that data might still be valuable in other ways. For example, you might want to measure your user attention, and maybe you want to measure your user attention amongst specific target demographics, for example. Things like that do still hold value. It's just not a direct value like with the advertising model. But there is a couple of problems with mining. So while Monero is certainly a popular option for JavaScript-based miners because it's mined on the CPU, it's a privacy coin, all of that fun stuff, there are so many tokens out there. Obviously, most of the tokens are absolute garbage and you want nothing to do with them, but even amongst the actual popular coins, there is still at least, you know, 50 to 100 to actually choose from. So if this model happened at a wide scale, what do you actually do? Do you centralize on one token and then give all the power to that individual blockchain, which is basically the problem we have with AdSense, where, yes, there are other ad networks that do exist, but AdSense is really the only one that actually matters. Or do you just use tons and tons of blockchains where the prices are massively fluctuating and each tool is questionably secure? I don't know. I really don't. And then there's the issue regarding power draw, especially for the low spec devices, the older laptops, the older desktops, and the low end phones, which, while tech is still really, really expensive, is becoming more and more common. And on sites where you're just going through a blog, maybe that extra bit of CPU power isn't really that big of a deal. But when we're doing things like decoding video on a site like YouTube, well, you actually want that extra horsepower, especially when you can barely decode 1080p video anyway. But then there's the issue of the actual amount of power you are using. Obviously, on the individual scale, this would lead to a higher power bill. It'll depend on, how many sites were doing this and how much they were actually drawing from your system. But imagine this on a wide scale with a site like YouTube, for example. YouTube is one of the biggest sites in the world. You could use like Facebook or Twitter or Netflix even. It doesn't really matter what site you're using. Just pick one of the biggest sites. This would lead to a massive power draw increase worldwide because this would make effectively everybody in the world turn into a crypto miner. I know someone's going to correct me there. Everybody in the world that has an internet connection. Is that better? While some sites would certainly try to mine as much as they can physically get away with, like the sites out there that, spam their entire sidebar with audio and video ads, the way that I would optimally like to see this is the minimal amount of mining. A minimal amount of mining that covers what would have been there in the case of an ad impression. So let's say on YouTube, an ad is worth roughly a tenth of a cent. So you would want to mine whatever covers a tenth of a cent worth of mining. I don't know how much that would be. I don't know if that's actually viable, how much CPU usage that would actually need, but that's the way that I would like to see it. The problem, though, is that a very simple coding mistake can ruin that entire balance. So back in 2018, a couple of sites were testing this. Two notable ones were Salon and the Pirate Bay. Very weird combination, but we'll stick with it. So both of these sites had a crypto miner rather than having ads. Salon gave you the option and Pirate Bay replaced them. Now, the problem, though, is they didn't properly set a limit. And they didn't set it based on the sort of system that was connecting to their site. So it just capped your CPU at 100%, and the sites were effectively unusable. I think the best way this could be handled is the way that Salon did it. Not the capping your CPU at 100%, but giving you the option. So you can choose, you have ads on this site, and by having ads, there is going to be data collection to build your ad profile, or you can use the crypto mining and then it'll fund the site just the same. We ultimately don't care which one you go with, just pick one of them. The problem that we could see, though, is if this isn't an option. If a site decides, okay, you know what? We're going to have ads and also crypto mining. The site is going to be slower than anyone would like it to be, and you just have to live with it. The problem I see with that, though, is I think that would just encourage people to start using browsers like Firefox, where crypto miner blocking is already built into it, and then using extensions like uBlock and other things like that, which obviously are typically used to block ads, but can also be used to block crypto miners as well. Now, I'm sure someone is going to mention a profit-sharing model, because if you're going to be mining on my CPU, then you better be paying me money to actually do it. And I think that is a totally fair statement. I just don't think it's a very likely future on a wide scale. So you don't need a crypto model to do profit sharing. You can do this with an ad model, and you can have that ad model, involved with crypto, for example, with Brave, but you could be paying someone directly in US dollars. It'd be the exact same structure. Nobody does it, though, because they want to keep the profit for themselves. I think it would be nice, and I agree it would be a great future. I just don't see it as very likely or really worth considering on a wide scale. And I'm sure someone in the comment section is going to tell me whether a model like this would actually be profitable or viable, and I would love to know the answer. From my understanding, it is, but there might be something that I am missing, and maybe you would have to mine a ridiculous amount to actually make it equivalent or better than the ad model that already exists. But assuming that it actually is viable, I am not instantly opposed to the idea. I know some of you guys are going to turn away instantly at the idea of mining because it, at this stage, does have a really, really bad rep. But if it's something that you are fully aware of, and there as a replacement to data collection regarding ad models, is it really that bad of an idea? I would love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. So if you like this video, remember to go and like the video. And if you really like the video and want to become one of these amazing people over here, go check out my Patreon, subscribe to OnlyBearerPay, linked in the description down below. I think I might also have crypto addresses on my website as well. So go and check those out if you want to. I've got a gaming channel that is Brewer Optim Plays. I've got a podcast called Tech Over Tea. And that's going to be it for me. So I'm out.